doing the human in the loop sales team workflow right now. So human in the loop sales team demo. So this is going to be a live build. You guys will see, like, I'm going to talk through what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. The goal is minimal errors, but there probably will be some, but we'll jump into why things erred, how we fix it, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So basically let's just get into it. This is how it's going to work. So the idea of this video is, if you haven't seen the human in the loop sales team video, I would go watch that YouTube video real quick first and then come back here. So what we're doing is we're having a lead form. We're pretending that lead form submissions come in through Airtable. And actually, great point, I should probably open up Airtable. We're pretending that leads are coming in through Airtable, and we're grabbing that lead form submission. And then with that, we are basically writing them an email. So we have Robert California, we've got their email, company, intent, budget, project description, timeline, and then we have the created date. So, or when the form was created. So first thing we're going to do is set up the Airtable trigger, because that's how the workflow is triggered. And then we also have a project database that it's able to scrape through in order to find a relevant project to the one that the lead submits in this project description. And then it can use that to, basically say, hey, here is what we did for a different client that has a project similar to you, and here's like the results that we had for them. So it's going to be a really tailored email, and then it's also going to come back to us in Gmail and say, hey, here's the email. What's your feedback? We submit our feedback. If it's good, it gets sent off to the lead. If it's not good, we give it feedback. It takes the feedback, rewrites the email with it. So cool. What I want to do real quick is duplicate this Airtable tab, because if you've never used Airtable, we got to set it up real quick. You could also use Google Sheets. You could use Notion, whatever you want. We're just doing Airtable for this case, for the trigger. But what you do is you'd come down here to Builder Hub in the right-hand side, and you would choose Personal Access Token. You're going to create a new token, and then in the token, you give it access to a certain base. So in this case, my base is called Contacts because it's up here. You can give access to different tables. You'll give access to read and write permissions to whatever it is, but that's where you're going to grab that API key, okay? So then from there, what we want to do is add an Airtable node. We're going to go trigger, which is on new Airtable event. You will obviously come in here, create a credential. You'll put in your access token, which is that one that I said. And then, of course, right here, you need to make sure you have the scopes. So I just went in here and gave myself all the scopes. You don't have to. You can customize, like maybe you want people just to be able to read into it, but not write into it. So that's where you set that up, of course. And then you connect your base and your table by ID or URL. So I'm just going to go by ID so I can show you guys what the IDs are. It gives you a template sort of example. So the ID the base ID starts with an A. So we're going to come into contacts. I hope you guys can, I think you can see this. So we're grabbing everything between the A and then the next slash. So that's our base ID. So we'll grab that. And then for the table ID, we just have to make sure we're clicking to the right table. As you can see, the base ID didn't change when we clicked into these different tables, but the table ID did, which starts with TBL. So that's our table ID. We'll grab that, place it into there. And now we have a trigger field. So we can't test this event until we start with the trigger field. This is where you may get confused, because I thought, name. Every time a new name comes in here, I'm just going to trigger by name, hit fetch test event, and it works. But what you have to do is, look at this question mark here, a created time or last modified time field that will be used to sort records. If you do not have a created time or last modified time in your schema, please create one. Otherwise, the trigger won't work. So that's why we had to add over here the field called created or last modified time. Now, obviously, if you're in Sheets or something like that, you don't need that. But if you're doing Airtable like this example, you'll need to throw that in there. And then you can reference by any trigger. In the actual video I made, I just kept it as created time. So right now I'm just going to do this. I'm going to pin this data because we're going to use this to test. But from there, what we're doing is we're feeding it into the first sales agent. That is the one that actually is creating that initial sales email. So I'm going to grab an AI agent. And what I'm going to do, just to save all of us time, is I'm going to real quick open this in a new tab. I'm going to go to my sales team agent, human in the loop sales team agent, so I can just grab the prompts from over there. Human in the loop sales team. Okay, so I grabbed those prompts, but I was going to just paste them in and run the workflow, but I realized a lot of what you guys are asking about is like, in the process of building these agents, how do you build the prompts? So I want to show that off, right? The answer real quick before I get into it is testing. So I start off really simple. I basically start off every agent. I throw an overview in there. I outline the tools, and then I run stuff. And then from there, I start to give it rules. I'll add one rule, run it again, see what happens. If it's good, we're fine. If it's still not working, I'll add another rule, or I'll change the wording of the rule. And the reason why you want to add things one by one rather than throwing in a whole prompt is because if we threw in a whole prompt and we're getting different errors, we're not going to know what to change, what to take away. I mean, obviously, every time you feed in data to an LLM, it's going to behave a little differently. But when you have that control, it's all about limiting variability. So when you have that control of, okay, I only changed this one line and now it's erroring, let's take out that line and run it again. If it works, we're good. If it's still not working, let's change the wording of the rule we just put in. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay. Cool beans. Okay, so we're connecting 4.0. I'm gonna use 4.0, just 4.0. I don't even remember what I used in the actual video, but we're just gonna try with 4.0. This is also part of the whole testing part. Like, you don't just throw everything together and then it works at the end. You want to test through every single step. So first, what we know here is that we're going to give it an overview, right? So I have my prompts pulled up here on the right just so I can reference it, but we're going to change things up. So first thing, this I'll just be able to paste in because this doesn't change too much, right? So you're an expert salesperson for an agency that delivers AI solutions. Your job is to respond to incoming leads by addressing their needs in a professional manner. You'll receive information like the lead's product and timeline, and your goal is to convince them that we are the best AI agency on the market. So we're setting the role here. You're basically a salesperson. You're getting a new lead. There hasn't been any touch point yet. So that's what you need to do. Now, as far as the actual user message that the agent's getting, it's getting nothing right now because it assumes that we have connected a chat trigger, which clearly we have not. We have an Airtable trigger. So we're going to define below, change this to an expression, and let's open this up and take a look at what we want to give this guy. So what do we tell it? We told it it's going to get information about a lead. So here is a new lead. We want to give it the name, of course. So we'll just drag in the name. We're going to give it the company name. Drag in company name. We don't need to give it the email, actually. We can just reference that later. Timeline will be good to know. So we can tailor the email towards the lead's timeline. Project description, definitely important to know. We will drag in project description, and then budget for sure. And then, yeah, we might as well go with like their intent, which is custom AI solutions. Okay, so now we have, this is what the agent's going to see. Every time a new lead comes in, this is what we'll see for that agent or for that lead. We'll call this guy the sales agent. And so now we have this, right? And as you can see, it doesn't know what tools it has. So let's connect that tool, which is going to be an Airtable tool. All we're going to be doing is call this projects. All we're going to be doing here is choosing our, whatchamacallit, project. We don't want to put in a record ID, so we're going to do search, and then we're going to do return all. So we don't need a filter here. You can see output fields. We can sort. I don't think we need to do any of that. So I think we're good to hear on this part because it's just going to be returning all products in there. So yeah, let's try it. We only gave it an overview. It doesn't know what tools it is, but it knows that I don't know. I forgot what we put in there, but let's see if it uses the tool or not. Right now, it's just going to be basically writing an email based on this information. Yeah, we haven't told it anything about its tools. It would be really smart if it did. See, it didn't, right? But it did tell us, hi, Robert, thank you for reaching out. It doesn't know our agency name, blah, blah, blah. It signs off your name, your position, AI agency, contact information. So that's not what we want. And so now we have an output, right? We have data in, we have data out, and now we can tweak this kind of stuff. So the first thing we know is it didn't use the project database. So from there, we want to say, okay, well, you have access to tools. I guess just one, so we'll say tool. And this one is called project. So I always list what the project name is and then when to use it. So use this tool to search through previous projects we've done. And so this is good, right? We know it's going to search through previous projects, so it already did that. But also we want to kind of define when to do that. And once you get that information back, what are you doing with it? So we'll probably come in here and reprompt. We'll see what we got now. Thank you for reaching out with such a detailed project. At our agency, we have extensive experience like building custom AI powered custom blah blah blah. We recently completed a project. Okay, so the client experienced 23% reduction in response time, 142% increase in sales conversion. So it did a good job. That just shows you it's pretty intuitive. But let's say we want to make sure that that's consistently being output. So we're going to give rules. The first rule is going to be keep, maybe we'll just number them. Keep the email concise and professional. So that's just a good overall rule of how to output your content. Second one will be your main objective. Actually, yeah, let's see. Let's discuss further to ensure we align our solution with your exact requirements and budget. Look forward. Okay, so they're kind of call to action, but not really. So we want to define that. Your main objective is to convince the lead to book in a call. Hopefully this keyboard doesn't annoy you guys. I like the sound of keyboards. Sometimes people hate them, so hopefully it's not too annoying. Anyways, your main objective is convince the lead to book in a call, right? I'm just going to paste this in here because I want to keep this wording. We say your job is to make believe we can deliver the project they have described and exceed their expectations. So this is just kind of setting the persona for this agent. And then finally, what we want to say is right here, we're telling it to retrieve information about the previous projects to share with the lead to prove that our team is capable of handling their project. Find a similar project, share the result of how we help the client. And then the last thing that we need to address is that it signed off as best regards your name, your position, AI Solutions Agency. We want it to be able to say, hey, like here at Dunder AI, we've done a lot of cool stuff. So what we want to do is give it some final notes, which I'm just going to paste in here, which are sign off emails as Jim, Dunder AI. And here's the current date and time. We can also say you're an expert salesperson for Dunder AI that delivers AI solutions. So now we've listed that out twice. We'll hit test step again, and this should be a pretty solid email. We'll see it hit the product database. Sorry about that. Cool. So, hi, Robert. I appreciate your inquiry into our AI services. Proven track record of sophisticated solutions. We recently crafted a custom AI-driven customer support system for an e-commerce client. It lists what the solution was. It talks about how it worked. Here are the results of that system. And we can deliver something similar for you. Given your timeline, I recommend setting a call to discuss your requirements and ensure we meet your development goals. Best regards, Jim, Dunder AI. No placeholders. That looks solid. But the whole point of this workflow is to pass it into us to actually give feedback. So, okay, cool. So next, we have to do a set node. And so I talked about this in the video. Didn't really dive too deep into it. But what we need to do here is set the actual email. So, actually, one more thing I think we didn't do is we didn't structure the output. Okay, cool. So we're going to structure the output real quick because what we're getting here is literally just an email. But what we want to get is an email and a subject. So real quick, let's do the structured output. So we have to flick this on. That's going to give us a fourth type of parameter here, which is output parser. We're going to do a structured output parser. And this lets us define the JSON that we want to come back. So this is what it looks like. What you would do is basically say, in ChatGPT, hey, I have this agent. I want it to output both. Email and subject. They're both going to be, strings, and then we can paste this in here. So we have the first type is a string. It is the subject of an email, and it is the subject right here. And then we also have an email, which is also string, and it is the body content of the email. And so what comes out every time will be a subject and an email. Cool. And I also realized that in the real example, I used Anthropic here and for the other agent. Let's just try this one with 4.0. But yeah, let's test this workflow again. And now we should be getting a structured output. And so hopefully this makes sense why we did this. We currently are only getting an output called output. But now, since this output parser worked, we have an output with a subject field and an email field, which we can easily later grab and drag into the fields we need when we're sending off that email. Okay, and then we come in here and set email. So I'm going to call this email. I'm going to grab just the email, right? Not the actual subject. So now we have just the email. And when we set this, it's coming through as a field called json.email, which is going to be important because the whole point of this is that we can iterate back and change up the email based on our feedback. And so let me try to explain this real quick. once the revisions are made, we're feeding it back into this email where it's going to take json.output.email and it's going to output it as json.email. And so later, when we need to reference the most recent email, either in the tool where we're sending it off or in the revision agent, what we need to do is just be able to reference, json.email. Or what we will do is reference the set email node referencing email, because otherwise we'd have to reference the output from the sales agent. And if we did that, then every time we revised it, it would still be looking at that first output from the sales agent. So if we made 4 revisions, it wouldn't be very good because it would be revising version 1, and then we get more feedback, and then we revise version 1 again, and then we'll revise version 1 again. And then finally, when we're actually sending off the email in Gmail at the end, it would either be only being able to reference sales agent's output or the revision agent output. So being able to set it here means that every time, no matter what, this node has the most recent version of our email. So I hope that makes sense. Cool. From there, what we're doing is we are grabbing, and I was going to type in evaluator. We're grabbing another AI agent. Actually, no, we're not. I lied. We're grabbing a Gmail node. So what we're doing here is now we're finally sending it off to the human for approval. So this is going to be feedback, the feedback node. We're just going to be sending it to anthric88@gmail.com, which has just been my example testing email for all these videos. The subject is, we basically get to set this here. So what I'm going to do is change this to schema. We want the subject to change every time based on the lead, right? So what we're going to do is change this to an expression. We are going to say, feedback required, or we'll say action required, more formal. Action required in all caps, just to make sure it's, we're getting action. We're going to say new lead, Robert, California. And so that's fine. We'll just leave it there. Robert, California, with a budget of, we'll drag in the budget from the Airtable form with the budget of 10 to 15,000. Okay, cool. So that's our subject. Now let's set up the message, which is going to be, hey Nate, we have a new lead and we want to reach out to them. Please provide feedback on the following email. Okay, so then we can just basically drag in the email, which is right here. So this is what we're going to be getting, and this is what we're going to be able to make changes on. Cool, so the response type. Now, this is where you could do approval, and in approval, you'd have approve only button. You could set this to have an approve and disapprove button. And so if you guys want to see what this looks like, I'll just test step real quick. So this is sending off an email where we can only approve or deny. So let's refresh this. In this case, we can click approve or decline. So I'm going to click decline. It sends us to a new tab. But now we get approved equals false. So what you could do is in the next node, you could say approved equals true. And then if it's true, it'll route up and it will send off. Or if it's false, it will come down and revise. But that's not as cool as being able to revise on feedback. So if we do a free text, basically what this is going to look like is when the action is required, rather than just saying approve or deny, we get to actually respond and we can provide feedback like this, right? So we'll send off that feedback. Now in N8N, what we're seeing is that feedback. So that's why we're able to feed this text into the revision agent and say, here's the email, here's the human feedback, make it better. So we have free text, we have our email coming through. We can set options as far as like, we're going to limit the wait time. We can set it for a time interval. We can do it at a specific time, all this kind of stuff. So that's how you can set it. We'll just leave it at the default right now, which is 45 minutes. It would time out, but that's cool. So we've got the feedback aspect. I'm just dragging this down here because I'm just going to put we want to structure the output of the revision agent the exact same way. So it feeds into this node the exact same way. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But now what we need to do is text classify. So I'm grabbing a text classifier node. This is basically just an agent that can split out different paths. And what we're doing is we're classifying the feedback from the human. So this is the feedback it's going to get. We should probably do better feedback to actually test. So I'm going to test this again. Sorry. I'm going to provide real feedback. I don't know why I typed in a bunch of gibberish. I'm going to just say good to go. So good to go. We'll send that off. Come back into our guy here. Now we have good to go as the feedback. We're going to connect a chat model. I'm just going to drag it into there. And now we have to add our categories. So the first one is an approved branch, where our description is the email has been reviewed and accepted as is. The human explicitly or implicitly expresses approval, indicating that no changes are needed. Here are some example phrases. Looks good, go ahead, this works for me, approved, all that kind of stuff. And then we have our declined branch, which is going to be obviously a bit different. What we're saying here is same framework of the email has been reviewed, but the human requests modifications, removing parts, suggested edits, whatever. And then here are some example phrases like, can we tweak this part, reword that, adjust this before sending, don't mention that we can't do that. Cool. So now we have these two paths. We'll hit test, and it's going to basically send out on a specific branch. So we have one item in the approved, nothing in the declined. So in the approved, what we can do real quick is just send a message. Send email. We're going to be sending it to the person that filled out the lead form. So we're going to be all the way back in the Airtable trigger, and we're grabbing the Airtable node item field. So here's the form response. The subject, now this is where we split out from the original sales agent. We're only having the sales agent make the subject, and we're not having the subject be revised. We could easily work in that logic, but in this video I didn't. So we're grabbing the subject from the sales agent. But now here, for the actual message, we're grabbing that from the set field, because it's going to be, like I said, the most recent version of the message. Finally, we're just going to turn off the innate attribution at the end, and we could send this off real quick just to see that it's working. Go into the email, and here is what we got for Robert, California, from Jim from Dunder AI with all this kind of stuff, right? So that's the email. Now what we need to do is just set up the declined branch. So what we're going to do is obviously add in an AI agent. There we go. This is going to be the revision agent. And yeah, so this one's very simple. First of all, let's set what's coming in, which is going to be, actually, we'll need to run a new one that has a better example, but let's set up the system message first. So system message here is simple, and I'm just going to paste this one in because there's not too much testing really that needs to go into this one. You're an expert email writer. Your job is to take an incoming email and revise it based on the feedback that the human submitted. And then same thing, sign off as Jim. Here's the current date and time. And now we just need to set what's actually going to get. So first of all, let's just connect the chat model again. We'll connect the output parser. Well, first we have to flip this on so it actually has that parameter. So now we have output parsing. That ensures that it can feed right back into this set email the exact same way. So we'll save this. But let's just run this one again. We're going to provide some feedback. Actually, sorry, let's just test the workflow. We're going to this time provide feedback that is negative, or we're going to ask it to change something, and then we can see how it's going to work. So it's writing the email. It's going to set it. It's going to ask for feedback. We will say, like, please make this much shorter, and then we'll be able to set up the revision agent from there. So here's our email. We will say, make this much shorter. Submit that. I don't know why the form is so narrow. Also, I hope that they change that up. It's a really cool feature, but I don't like how it's so narrow. Anywho, so it got classified as declined, and now we have fed into the revision agent. So now we have data to play with over here. What we're going to do is, first of all, here is the email to revise, because this agent is only going to get information. It's only going to be activated if revisions are necessary. So we can drag in right here the email to revise. So cool, that's what it's getting. And then here is the human feedback. And then what we'll do is we're grabbing that feedback from either the text classifier or the feedback node. I'm just going to grab it from the feedback node. And then we have the feedback down here, which is make this much shorter. We can go ahead and hit run. Revision agent. So it's trying to reference the set email. Okay, so this is just because we're testing it and it went like that. So let's just do it again. We're going to test the workflow. We should have our things configured now. We'll do the same thing. We'll just basically tell it to make it shorter, or we'll say, we'll just do that first, and then we'll run it again to make sure that it's working and it's referencing the same one. So this is an issue I came upon when I was testing, right? I said, like, make this shorter. and then it went ahead and made it shorter. So let's see what in the world. I don't know why that happened. Okay, so something's going on here. I don't know why this node is getting like destroyed. Test the step. Wait for feedback. Okay, so you see how it's already trying to pull the revision agent. This is just a testing error that I had gotten before with the whole like it's waiting to call data. So this probably won't work as well, but we'll be able to fix this. So yeah, it literally just stops there. You see, like, okay. So what we're gonna do is just reload this workflow. Because everything really right now is configured properly. It should be working. We're just going to test this again. It's got a chat model. It's got, it's got information to reference. It's executing previous nodes. It should be going down decline branch. Yeah, I don't think anything's wrong. I think it's just like kind of bugging because we're in a test environment. So it's waiting for us now. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't spinning anything else. Here it is. Make this shorter as our feedback. Come back into here. There we go. Now it's hitting the revision agent. It's going to make that information, it's going to make that email shorter. And so back to what I was saying. So it's waiting on us for feedback now. So now we should have a shorter email. And now we need to make another suggestion. So let's say don't mention the timeline of 1 to 2 weeks. Don't mention a timeline of 1 to 2 weeks, even though they mentioned that in their lead form. Submit that, and now it's going to go down to declined. It's going to revise that again. And this time we know it's revising the already shortened email because we're referencing it here. And that was an issue I was having up front, was because I was just like, why isn't it's forgetting my first feedback and it's only taking into account my second feedback. And then, it wasn't sending off the right one either. So now let's just say it's good to go. We'll just say send it. That sounds so college. Anyways, there we go. So it sent it off. Let me just close out of these tabs. Sends it off. We will see the new email where it's pretty concise. It doesn't ever mention 1 to 2 weeks, so that's pretty good. Cool. Okay. Yeah, so I guess we're pretty much done here. We have the ability of, it's going to come back more than once, sending over the most recent one. What we can do here is see the different runs. So here was the first one where it mentioned 1 to 2 week time frame. Here's the second one. Although here's the first one where we see the actual feedback. We can't just because there's no data. It's weird like that sometimes, but you can actually see the runs. And keep in mind, this one was using 4.0 rather than in the example we were using Anthropic Claude 3.5. You can also see that it's outputting a subject in an email, which is cool because then when it loops through into this node's able to reference json.output.email, which is basically saying whatever just fed information into me, let's look for the output and the email in their JSON. So, I'm sure by now you guys understand these variable calls where you, if you say JSON, your 2 curly braces and you say JSON, returns the JSON input data to the current node for the current item. So this means that whatever was previously feeding information in, we're going to look in that node for its JSON information. But when we do here, we can reference earlier nodes by saying like specifying the node, then .item, .whatever, .message, .output, whatever it is. And so that's why those are set, but we can use a set here to make things more variable because every time in the set email will be revised version. That's why over here, we're able to call the subject from the sales agent specifically. We're able to call the email from the Airtable trigger specifically, but the message is could change throughout this workflow. So we have to call that from the set that we used to grab the correct email every time. So cool. I hope this one was helpful. Step-by-step walkthrough. Ran into a few issues there, but yeah, like I said, we kind of walked through the process of the prompting, of connecting different tools, how you want to test each step along the way, rather than just trying to build out a whole workflow. So like I said, hopefully this one was helpful. Let me know, and appreciate you guys watching this one.